Welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff by IMA, the podcast where we decode purpose, innovation, and the human pursuit of meaning. I am Nandini, thrilled to host today's conversation with someone who has transformed the creative landscape in India. Our guest today has not only redefined what it means to think minimal, but has also built a brand that stands for bold clarity, purpose driven storytelling, and razor sharp communication. Please welcome Sahil Vaidya, co-founder of The Minimalist, a brand that has challenged conventional narratives and inspired a new wave of design-led strategy in the country. From founding one of India's most disruptive agencies to helping organizations across industries find their authentic voice, he has done it all and more. Sahil, we are truly excited to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You started Minimalist while studying at IIT Bombay. What motivated you to take that unconventional path and turn a college project into a business?
Sure. So this is a interesting story. It all started in a very serendipitous way. It was never really planned, this entire journey. So my co-founder Chirag and I both were students at IIT Bombay. We were studying engineering, right? And it was through the years of studying at IIT that we realized that this is not really our cup of tea. I think every engineer realizes that sooner than later. And it was the third year, and I was just enjoying life at IIT Bombay. I was dabbling with all kinds of creative pursuits, be it, writing jokes on Facebook or making memes or writing blogs or learning how to do drumming. I was into music. So I was just enjoying life. I wasn't really focusing on my lectures. And even Chirag, my co-founder, was getting deep into design. He was really passionate about design. So both of us had two things in common. We were both passionate about creativity, and both of us had really terrible grades. So those two things got us together, and we realized that the conventional paths won't really make sense for us uh, because anyway nobody's going to give us a job. So what should we do next? So it was at the end of the third year that we thought that why don't we combine our interests and maybe start something. So we decided that let's start a Facebook page, and what we can do is we can start putting out some content on that page on everything that's happening in the country, and let's see where it goes from there. And at that point, Facebook was the dominant social media platform, and we were like the Gen Zs of 2015, the new kids on the block, digital natives. So we thought, let's just start putting content and let's see where it goes. And minimalism was just an emerging trend back then. So we also really liked that concept because we felt that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And when you put things very simply and remove all the fluff, it really leads to a very thought-provoking output. And that's why we decided to follow that path. And after coming up with 10, 15 really terrible names, I came up with the Minimalist. And my co-founder really liked it. And we just started the Facebook page by calling it the Minimalist. So we realized that, that content was getting good appreciation. Every time some news piece would break out, we would come up with our own interesting, very simple but witty and hard-hitting take on it, and it would suddenly go viral. So today it's called moment marketing, but back in the day, those words didn't exist. We were able to build a following of over 1.5 lakh people organically. But again, words like creator or influencer or community building, these didn't exist. So we were just doing random experiments and seeing what works and planning accordingly. So once that Facebook page grew very big and we had a big following, a lot of brands started reaching out to us saying that if you're doing this for fun, why don't you actually work with us? Why don't you do our UI UX or our marketing or our branding? And that's literally how we started the company. So it was never a master plan or a grand strategy. It just started in a very accidental way. And then once we started working with brands, one thing led to the other, and we were able to embark on a fun journey for at least a decade and counting.
Great, Sahil, because a lot of us come along with such accidents or whatever you say. We do experiments in our college time as well, but not everybody of us has the courage to take up with the
Hmm.
path to move forward with what we really like about it. So this actually leads us to our second question. You just said that you knew that the conventional path was not really for you, but isn't in general everyone sees IITians as academically driven. Like, so what was your real IIT B life like?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, from the outside, it all looks like these are very studious nerds and, very good at academics, very focused. But what happens inside is a very different story. The thing is that after studying so hard for a couple of years or maybe 3 years for some people, and being in such a regimented schedule and sacrificing all the fun of life, you have finally entered IIT. Where suddenly there's so much freedom. Suddenly you can do hundreds of things that you never even imagined. So that freedom is intoxicating, and so you will find people inside IIT pursuing all kinds of things except academics. Of course, there are those people who still manage to really do well because ultimately it's a bunch of really, really intelligent folks. But at the same time, you'll see that some people are pursuing music, some people are getting into dance, some people are doing robotics, some people are getting into social service. It's like a complete mixed bag. So the best part about IIT life was that there was so much freedom to explore different kinds of activities, different kinds of hobbies, interests, passions. I could learn drumming over there because it was such a free environment where you could learn from seniors, and there was the entire ecosystem and infrastructure to pursue these things. And it was encouraged. The culture is encouraging. It's not just about academics, it's about hundreds of other things. And I think this entire culture, which allowed me to experiment with different creative formats, is probably what helped me ultimately get into this particular space. So I think the entire atmosphere is very energetic. It puts you in different directions, and the network is also tremendous. The kind of friendships that you build in IIT, the kind of learnings that you have working and collaborating with different kinds of people, it really sets the stage for lifelong growth. So yeah, I mean, really thankful that I could go to such a place, even though I couldn't really pursue engineering as a career. Um, I think it was a very, very phenomenal experience, and I wouldn't do anything different if I had to wind back time.
Right, you have put it in a very, I'd say, concise way that though it's not just the academics in IITs which the students are fond of, it's the entire environment over there. Right.
Right.
So, I loved hearing about your IIT journey as well. If you could share some moments, where you can share that if you have bunked class or you've done something memorable that you would remember for the whole IIT journey. You can look back up to it.
I think there were so many things. I mean, I'm pretty old now, so like, it's been 10 years since I got out. So maybe I must have even forgotten a lot of those interesting stories. But yeah, I think bunking classes was very common. In fact, my schedule was inverted. I would sleep in the morning and get up in the evening. So naturally, all classes were bunked, and I managed to do this for a very, very long time. Even the classes I made my way to, surprisingly, on one of those rare days, I would sleep on the first bench. So yeah, that was a very common thing at IIT, and I always remember that I would try to start studying 2 days before the exam, but then end up watching videos on YouTube, and then it was the last day, the last moment that we finally started, struggling for notes. So I remember one day in my final exam, the final exam was at 8 a.m. in the morning, and at 2 a.m. I was asking my friends what's the syllabus, right? And then the preparation started. So and those kinds of things were extremely common at IIT. I mean that, and the funny part is that I started the company in my last year, and I had the dual degree project also to do alongside that. So I did both things in parallel. I barely had any time to focus on the dual degree project because I was a 5 year BTech plus MTech course. So the final year you have to do a project to get your degree. So I just did the bare minimum over there. And at one point I had even considered, should I just drop out and do this business thing all by myself and let this degree be and maybe get out with a BTech. But then cooler heads prevailed, and I managed to get through the entire thing. With bare minimum effort, of course, but yeah. So yeah, life was always like that, always on the edge. Now I can say that it was a lot of fun, but of course, at the end of the third year, when I didn't know that I would build a minimalist, it was also quite scary and uncertain because I had no clue what I would do. I had never built a resume. I had never done those interesting internships or never acquired any positions of responsibility which I could dump on my resume and probably get a job uh, uh, for doing all of those things. So I had nothing. Everyone is a tiger on paper. I wasn't even that, and I had no clue. So yeah, I genuinely was a clueless engineer by the end of the third year. And I was very lucky that this thing started at the right time.
So you've spoken about the IIT Bombay's ecosystem before, right? So you know what the culture is really like. But nowadays, what is happening is that a lot of people believe, and Indian parents basically believe that IIT tag is everything for them. They believe that if you get into IIT, your life has been made. You have done everything in your life. So, do you think the IIT tag is really worth the hype it gets in India?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, in the sense, it's worth the hype, of course, because it's like a brand, right? So once the IIT Bombay brand logo comes on your papers, it's like endless, lifelong validation that okay, this person is probably very intelligent and not useless. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that once you get that logo, you can just relax and life will figure out itself on its own. That's not the case at all. I mean, it's just the starting point. It's just that you have a uh, advantage when compared to others at the start line of the race. I mean, unfortunately, it's many people turn it into a race. Actually, it should not even be a race. But if you look at it from that point of view, many people uh, think that it's like you have already won the race, but that's not the case. It's just that you have a slight advantage at the beginning because people will consider you more. It'll be easier to do business with you if you've gone to IIT and people know that you're from there. But at the same time, I mean, efforts have to be put in throughout your life. There are so many people who go to IIT and still struggle going forward because maybe they haven't figured out what they want to do or they haven't found something interesting that they can pursue for their entire lives. I could have been one of those people if in my third year I had not taken this path and maybe I would have remained eternally confused. So in that case, yeah, maybe the IIT degree would have looked great on paper, but practically I don't know if it would have really helped. Yes, it does help people land a job regardless of what they do because again you have that very strong brand on your resume, but I would say the efforts still have to be put later in life, especially to live a purposeful and meaningful life where you're doing what you enjoy. Because many people figure out later that it's not just about the money. Everyone thinks it's about the money, but it's really not.
So you talked about, we were talking about the Indian parents. So how did you convince your parents to, that I'm doing a business, leaving the line of engineering that everyone chooses?
Right. I mean, I was very lucky again in that regard as well. First of all, I didn't have to convince anyone because my dad is an entrepreneur, so they were naturally understanding and very encouraging. So I had absolutely no struggles over there. In fact, they were very supportive, and my dad was my earliest mentor, and he helped me guide. He helped me understand how building a services company really works because he has built one. So instead of uh, pushbacks, I only got encouragement. So that was a great thing. And number two is that by the time I left college, we already had a team of 15, 20 people and already had a business up and running. So really there, I mean, once you see that something's alive and breathing and making money, you don't really have to then prove anything. I mean, the proving is already done. It's more about growing after that. So yeah, I was very lucky in that regard. I didn't have to convince anyone.
So now talking about the business. So what was your approach to bootstrapping in the early days, especially without external funding, right?
Right. I think so we are a services company, right? So we offer creative solutions to our clients. And typically, a services company actually should not require funds to get going. Of course, we started with zero fund. There was not even an initial investment that we had because we were two broke engineers in our 80 square feet college room. So we actually had 0 rupees. In fact, we had so little money, we used to share auto rides to our internships, which is when we started talking about the idea of starting the minimalist. We really had no money, and that's why we had to execute like a bootstrap from hell and start with 0 rupees. And every rupee that we earned from working with clients was reinvested into maybe getting an office or getting an intern or hiring more people or whatever it is that you require in your early days, right? So it was fun, and I think it taught us to remain very grounded, like Gujaratis and Marwadis do. Where every penny counts, and they are very careful about how to spend, and you should make money, right, instead of just burning cash. So yeah, I think that was a tough but a very fruitful phase because it taught us how to grow a business without burning cash. And anyway, services businesses are not really. cash guzzlers. You are not investing in some technology or infrastructure, so you can start with just a laptop and an internet connection and some ideas in your head. And that's true even more today with AI, because you can even learn things and have a partner to do so many things for you, which earlier wasn't in existence. So, yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to start a company, I think today it's easier than ever. And I think we did it 10 years ago, but I think today it would have been even better. So I certainly think you can start companies with zero money. You don't need to raise funds. People in our country have been doing it for thousands of years. Just learn from them.
Like when you told that you started this minimalist company, minimalism was just a new trend. So how did you manage to convince companies that this is not underwork or something in design, but it is something real? Like,
Yeah. So I don't think we had to do any convincing because the work itself did the convincing. And that's one of the interesting things about growing a business in the unconventional way, where you put out your work and let people appreciate that, and that itself will generate demand on its own. So in our early years, we never went and approached clients and did business development. All clients actually reached out to us because they had seen our work already on the Facebook page, which was going viral and doing the round. And they were so appreciative of the work and they loved it so much that they actually ended up becoming clients of ours. So the lesson here is that in a very saturated and commoditized industry where there are hundreds of players doing the exact same thing that you're doing, you have to find ways to differentiate. And we found our method of differentiation via adopting that minimalist approach and really building a very different kind of design language, communication style, and then executing that work and showing that our work can go viral, which gave clients confidence that if they've done it for themselves, they can obviously do it for us. So yeah, that was one of the techniques that really helped us growth hack and find our way to winning a lot of clients without reaching out to them.
a follow-up question was like, what was your exact growth hacks? But it was all organic and the work you put out. So
Yes,
if you had to like start today, so what would be your growth hacks today? Like, because now minimalism is like kind of saturated. Many people are doing it. So what would
right.
you do today different?
Uh, I mean, I would change with the times and I would see what is the need that people have right now from content, what is an underexploited trend today. And maybe I would come up with 5, 10 ideas around that and maybe start with something, be at it for a while, see if I can gain traction and virality with it, and keep changing and experimenting as we go. Because what worked yesterday will not necessarily work today. So I think these opportunities still exist, and with the emergence of AI, even more possibilities have expanded. And so yeah, I would probably change what exactly we do because this trend has already emerged and people have already adopted it. But the approach of finding underexploited trends and then trying to build a unique voice in it to differentiate yourself from the hundreds of other people, I would still retain that approach.
Okay, so moving ahead with the next question. So as a young founder, we tend to have like creative demands as well as business demands, and sometimes it gets too overwhelming or burdening. So how do you try to avoid burnout in such situations? Like any hobby that you try to pursue or anything to relax a bit after a busy day of work?
Right. I have been doing this thing called Vipassana meditation for the last 4 years, and I think that has been a game changer for me personally, and I can't recommend it enough. I've also written many times about it on my newsletter, and I always try to recommend it to people. I would also recommend it to all of you guys, because when I did the first course in 2021, I clearly can tell you that there was a life before that thing and a life after that thing. So it's a way to completely change your life and the way you look at the world and really live in the present and observe reality as it is. So once you start meditating and understanding how that technique works, you can start practicing every day at home, and it really produces changes in your life, where you are much more mindful, you are much more present in the moment, you are much less reactive. Anytime a big escalation happens or some negative news comes to you, you don't just react, and your mood doesn't swing up and down and up and down all the time. You are a lot more steadier because you start understanding that okay, this too shall pass, and you can learn to observe your own body and your reactions and be so much more calmer and quieter. So I think that was one really big game changer for me, and I can't recommend it enough. And I think that has been the foundation of my life, and it is what helps me stay calm and steady in the face of chaos.
So that's a really great advice. And like everybody who listens to this podcast, I think someone will walk away with a really great advice to how to basically avoid burnout in such a way. So, like shifting gears a bit, like what is one misconception that brands still have about Gen Z or like the urban modern consumers in India, and how is the minimalist trying to change that perception or working towards it?
Right. I think a lot of brands have this unsaid assumption which reflects in their marketing when they market to Gen Zs or urban consumers, which is that on social media, people still come to check out your product and they care about your brand and your product. But the truth is that the new generation, which is Instagram native and digital native, they don't really care about a brand. I mean, if you ask yourself, how many brands do you follow and how many people do you follow on Instagram? I mean, the ratio is insane. You only follow people, right? You follow creators. You don't really care as much about what a brand is saying. Especially, you don't care about what new product they launch or what new features they have, right? Nobody gives a rat's ass about those things. So, what people really need to understand is that people follow people. People like certain emotions to be triggered within them, be it uh, laughter or curiosity or warmth or love or whatever it is. And then you need to give people content that they can relate to, that can add value to their life. But many brands are stuck in the old paradigm where they keep talking about their products and features, which nobody really cares about. So we are living in times where brands should try to be people, uh, but they are still stuck in the old framework. So I think we are trying to fix that by educating brands, and when we start working with them or when we pitch to them, we really try to align them on how can we create content so that we become a person in people's life, not just uh, an entity that pushes certain things that you can buy and that we can sell to you. So how do you make that shift? How do you build communities through content that adds value? Is the mission that we are on, and thankfully we have managed to do it with a few brands. Like one example is Tata Click Luxury. We have been building that brand for the last 4 years, and we have truly managed to make it the destination for luxury connoisseurs in the country. And that doesn't happen by just selling you a yoga mat or a candle on social media. It happens when you celebrate a larger philosophy and you make all your conversation around it. So for Tata Click Luxury, slow commerce was the philosophy that we identified, that the real luxury in life is time, right? It's not a watch or a perfume that you can buy, but it's the time you can take to pause in this really fast world and savor those moments when you're, let's say, smelling a candle or, applying a perfume and letting that aroma sink in. So every conversation, all the creatives is about the slow life, right? And that is what people relate to. That's the philosophy that they buy, and they want to engage in content that talks to them in that language, that gives them ideas or inspirations, or has conversations with them about that. And in that way we have managed to grow the community a lot. So I think this is one learning, that as times change, we have to constantly adapt. We have to talk to people in their voice and not be stuck in our own voice from the past.
Thank you, sir. That was some amazing thoughts. Moving on, you were recognized quite early on with accolades like the Forbes list, which is very huge. But I wonder, did that ever box you in? Did you ever feel the pressure to constantly live up to that tag?
Not really, because yeah, while these achievements sound great on paper, but I mean, they are just again, Forbes is again just a brand, right? It's a brand that you use for generating validation amongst clients and partners and stakeholders. But it doesn't mean that you have suddenly done something insane. You still have to go back and do the same things over and over again. So I never took that as a sign that I have like arrived in life or done something incredible. It was just another brand that we could add to increase our trust and validation amongst clients that we were approaching, but the approach towards work remains the same. And I don't think it created any pressure because, I mean, when you start meditating, you understand that these things come and go. Nothing is permanent. So the more you attach yourself to these accolades, the more you are setting yourself up for misery. So no, forget Forbes. I don't even attach myself to the idea that okay, I'm an entrepreneur who will always keep growing his company forever, right? So um, I think it never really acted as a hindrance. It was just a nice thing to have, which we could use to increase our appeal to clients.
That's quite interesting to hear. So, moving on to the next question. You mentioned about your newsletter. So, that dives deep into creativity, branding, and personal growth. I'm curious to know what actually inspired you to start writing it.
Right. So, apart from creativity, one of the infinite games for me is curiosity. And by infinite game, I mean that, like I said earlier, chasing money or status is a finite game. It's a game which has rules, it has winners and losers. You either win that game or you lose that game, and it's supposed to end, right? Like people think that by 50, if I don't become a CEO and if I don't earn this much, then I have either lost or I've won, right? So that's a very constricting game. It's not fun to play. You're always under pressure. You're always thinking, what if I turn out to be a loser in that game, right? And these are all arbitrary constraints or arbitrary rules that we created. If I don't earn this much, I'm a loser. If I don't become this designation, I'm a loser. But contrast that to infinite games. These games can go on for your entire life. The point of the game is that you don't want it to end. You want to play forever. There are no boundaries. It's not like, there are certain rules you have to abide by, and then there are certain boundaries you have to play with. You can keep changing the game, keep changing how you play it, and it's always fun. There's no pressure. So I focus a lot on what are my infinite games rather than these finite games of money, status, wealth, and achievement. And curiosity is one such infinite game which I think it can go on forever for me. I can keep reading, keep learning, keep growing. Every time I learn something that I didn't know and it blows my mind, I feel so nice about it, right? It's like one of the most meaningful things in my life. That's why I keep reading books. I keep trying to learn new things through various sources like articles, podcasts, newsletters, blogs, apart from books, right? And even conversations and traveling with people. So after reading for maybe more than 5 6 years, reading very voraciously and widely, I realized that I was taking so many notes and changing my own worldview in such interesting ways. I thought that why don't I just communicate all the ideas that I'm picking up and all the worldview altering mental models that I'm picking up to share with other people, right? So I thought let's just start a newsletter and start writing about these concepts, and let's help other people build a learning machine just the way I've built my own. And that's why the name of the newsletter is Learning Machine, because I believe, especially in the age of AI and machine learning, everyone should have their own learning machine and they should learn from a variety of sources. So I thought my newsletter could just be a part of their learning regime, expose them to new ideas, because I truly believe that ideas are what change your life. If after this podcast, even one of you go for Vipassana meditation and end up becoming a better person, I would consider my job as done. Or rather, I would feel very happy. My job is not done, but I would feel extremely happy that I could positively impact one person and change their life. That newsletter is another attempt to help people learn and discover things that can change their lives.
That was truly a great answer, sir. Uh, along with reading books, you have also co-authored a book, Think Like a Minimalist, while scaling a company. What did the writing process teach you about your own creative philosophy? Can you put light on that?
Yeah, I think writing the book made it clear that this is a process that's something that you can teach to people. I think it was already made clear when our team members were learning it, and then they were taking workshops in colleges and institutions, and people could learn the techniques and the art and science behind minimalism and how to use those techniques to create really thought-provoking ideas. But then when we put the book out and we saw that people were actually completing the task. So in the book, we have, I think, 10, 11 chapters. Each one is a technique that you can use to do very inventive, minimalistic work. And we have some challenges at the end of every chapter. So people actually attempted those challenges and posting their output on social media. And some of the work that people are doing was very interesting. So we genuinely learned that this is something that can again inspire people to think creatively, to live a creative life, to come up with even better ideas once they know these techniques. And the other thing was that, yes, I mean, the entire idea of putting your philosophies out there is a very good one. It doesn't matter how many copies you sell. The purpose should be to just put out your thoughts, and even if two, three people can benefit from it, that's a very big change that you have brought to the world. So that is what I mean. Our book successfully, I mean, thankfully, it was very successful. It like thousands of people ended up reading it, and it became a national bestseller. So we are very grateful for that. In fact, when we wrote it, I never even imagined that even 100 people would want to read it. But since it's very visual, very short, I think it just worked. So yeah, I mean, it also taught me that you may think that I should not attempt this project because it's too big, and what if I fail and nobody picks it up? The thing is, nobody cares. I mean, just do it. The entire point is to take shots at various things, and nobody cares if it doesn't work. But if you didn't take the shot, you definitely wouldn't have succeeded. So in life, when there are these opportunities, you should always put yourself out there and take the shot. That was the big learning for me. Because I never imagined that this book would sell so much.
Sir, if you were 18 again, starting today, what mindset, skill set, and tool set would you prioritize again?
If I were 18 again, maybe I would focus a lot on becoming extremely proficient at AI. Uh, and I don't think that would be difficult because this generation has seen AI evolve. So again, just the way when we were 17, 18, we grew up with social media. This generation is growing up with AI. So that wouldn't be very difficult, but I would try to gain mastery in it. And I would also tell my 18-year-old version that while AI is making it very easy to just search for anything, I would still try to build the muscle of reading books or listening to long form podcasts and engaging in the difficult and often boring sounding things. Like today, if you can get a book summary with a prompt, why would you read the entire 300 pages? But that's exactly the point. You have to train your mind to sort of sit with boredom, to dabble with difficult ideas that don't feel a lot of fun, that take a lot of effort. I think the people who manage to build that mental muscle are the ones who will emerge as winners. And when I say winners, I don't mean that there are winners and losers. In the sense, they'll be able to prosper a lot because they have developed skills that will be very relevant in tomorrow's world. And there is a real possibility that because AI produces everything in a second, people may stop putting in as much effort as they did earlier in reading and engaging in things for longer hours and sitting with boredom. Today also, if you see, it's so hard to spend 20 minutes without doing anything, right? You can just your hand instinctively goes to your pocket and takes the phone out and starts random scrolling. That it has become a hardwired reaction for us. Next time, try sitting for 20 minutes without doing anything, and you see how tough that is. So I would remind myself that develop that skill. It's the skill that very few people in the world will continue to develop. And if you develop that, you will be able to create a mind that can learn anything new, that can deal with ambiguity and uncertainty. And that's the most important skill in a world that's changing every day. So I would push myself to develop those skills.
Moving on to the last question. Who is Sahil when no one is watching? Like, what's a typical day like? What's some non-negotiable routine in your day? Like you already told about meditation. What could be something else that's something non-negotiable for you?
Right. So as you got it right, the meditation thing is non-negotiable. Every day I have to sit for an hour at least and meditate. Apart from that, I always get up in the morning and the first thing I do is start reading a book, whatever I'm reading at the moment. So reading is also a non-negotiable. I read first thing in the morning. I read in the car. I also read in the night before bed. I like to listen to podcasts when I'm in the car and traveling back home. So that's also, when you get stuck in traffic, people think it's a very unproductive and wasteful time, but I try to make use of it and listen to these long form podcasts. So even if your travel is going on for an hour, you can maybe listen to one or two podcasts and learn new things. So that's part of my routine. I also try to work out every day. It's not easy, but I ensure that I'm doing some kind of exercise on a daily basis and try to hit those 8 to 10,000 steps every day. We are reading, meditating, listening to podcasts. Those are key things. And also, I have a 1.5-year-old son, so I like to play with him when I get back. That's also a non-negotiable for me. And on weekends, I try to write for my newsletter. I also try to journal once a week over the weekend. Earlier, I used to do it much more often, but now I'm doing it once a week. And again, for all of you, journaling is a very good habit. I would strongly recommend it. If nothing, at least you can read your journals 5 or 10 years later, and it'll reveal a lot about who you were at that time, how you were thinking. That's also a very interesting habit that I have. Yeah, those are the things that I consider very important in my daily and weekly schedule.
Like from bunking IIT classes to building the minimalist, you have made chaos look classy. Like thanks for the deep dives and hot takes. This was anything but minimal.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.